Do you ever close your eyes and find yourself drifting back to those Christmas mornings when the world felt softer, quieter, and somehow warmer than it does today? When the glow of colored lights reflected gently across tinsel-trimmed walls, and the scent of pine and oranges drifted through every room like a comforting whisper? Back then, Christmas had a slower rhythm, one made of small rituals, familiar voices, and the kind of magic that didn't need anything expensive to feel real. The Britain of the 1960s and 1970s lived Christmas with a simplicity that has almost slipped through our fingers over the decades. Some traditions stayed, many faded, and a few disappeared entirely without us noticing. Today, we revisit 12 Christmas traditions from those times that have quietly vanished, yet still live on in memory, waiting to be remembered once more. Number 1. The paper chain evenings. Do you remember sitting cross-legged on the carpet, licking tiny glue tabs to join strips of colored paper into long, cheerful chains? Those evenings felt endless in the best possible way, with siblings competing to see who could make the longest loop while the radio hummed gentle festive tunes in the background. The warm light from a single lamp made the colors glow as the chain grew across the room, draping from mantelpieces, shelves, and doorways. In many British homes of the 60s and 70s, these paper chains weren't just decorations, they were family bonding woven into color and glue. They became popular in post-war decades when Christmas creativity mattered more than cost. The tradition faded as ready-made decorations became cheaper and sturdier. Do you remember the feeling of stretching a finished chain across the room? Number 2. The tinsel-draped television set. Did your family ever wrap tinsel around the edges of the television, framing the screen like a glowing festive picture? In many homes, the TV was the heart of Christmas gatherings, and decorating it felt almost ceremonial. When Christmas specials played, the soft sparkle around the screen made everything feel just a little more magical, especially for children who associated those shimmering edges with holiday excitement. During the 60s and 70s, when TV sets were big, boxy, and heavy, families often personalized them with festive touches that brought warmth to living rooms. As technology shifted to slim screens and minimalist designs, the idea of decorating a television slowly disappeared. Do you remember how the tinsel caught the light from the screen? Number 3. The Christmas orange at the foot of the bed. Do you recall waking up to find a single orange nestled inside your stocking, its bright color and sharp scent announcing Christmas morning before anything else? For many children, that orange tasted like pure celebration, a rare, refreshing treat during colder months. Its presence symbolized care, tradition, and a nod to earlier generations when fruit was precious and deeply appreciated. Throughout the 60s and 70s, the Christmas orange remained a beloved keepsake from Victorian-era customs, representing both sweetness and simplicity. But as supermarkets began offering exotic fruit year-round, the once special orange lost its place in stockings across Britain. Do you remember peeling it slowly, letting the scent fill your room? Number 4. Carol singers at the doorstep. Do you remember the soft knock at the door and the sudden chill of winter air as a small group of neighbors began to sing? Carol singers brought music directly to your home, their voices rising gently into the night, sometimes shaky, sometimes strong, but always full of warmth. Standing by the doorway, hearing familiar hymns drift into your living room felt like being part of a shared community ritual. During the 60s and 70s, carol singing was still woven into British town and village life, carried over from older traditions dating back centuries. The practice faded as neighborhoods grew quieter and people became less familiar with one another. Do you remember the smile that lingered after closing the door? Number 5. The glow of fairy lights with real bulbs. Do you remember the gentle warmth of old-fashioned bulb lights? The kind that glowed softly rather than flashing wildly? Those lights had a comforting steadiness, casting warm pools of color across the tree and the room beyond. Parents kept spare bulbs in drawers, because one burnt-out bulb could darken the whole strand. a small inconvenience that somehow added to the charm. These lights defined the 60s and 70s aesthetic, offering a rich, cozy brightness that modern LEDs rarely capture. As safer, cooler, and cheaper LED lights became widespread, the classic bulbs quietly disappeared from most homes. Do you remember testing each bulb to find the faulty one? Number 6. Christmas cards hung on string. Do you recall the long rows of cards stretched across living rooms, pegged neatly onto string like little festive flags? Each card felt like a tiny connection: family, friends, neighbors, even the milkman, reminding households that they were part of something larger. The colorful illustrations, glittered edges, and handwritten messages became part of the decor, filling rooms with a warm sense of community. This simple display grew during the 60s and 70s, when sending cards was an essential December ritual and the postman made multiple daily deliveries. As digital messages replaced handwritten greetings and fewer cards were exchanged, the familiar lines of string gradually vanished. Do you remember picking your favorite card and placing it right in the middle? Number 7. The annual Christmas board games marathon. Do you remember how the entire family gathered around the table after Christmas lunch, ready for hours of board games filled with laughter, debate, and the occasional playful argument? The crackle of wrapping paper still littered the floor, and the warmth of the meal lingered as everyone leaned forward, eager to roll dice or draw cards. These games were more than entertainment. They were part of the rhythm of the season, moments that brought generations together. In the 60s and 70s, such gatherings were central to family celebrations, especially when television offered limited channels and few distractions. As digital entertainment grew, long board game sessions slowly became less common. Do you remember the sound of dice bouncing across the table? Number 8. The scent of real pine needles on the carpet. Do you remember the soft crunch of fallen pine needles beneath your slippers as the real Christmas tree released its fresh scent throughout the house? That earthy aroma filled every corner, mixing with cooking smells and creating a fragrance unique to the season. Families would fuss over watering the tree, adjusting branches, and sweeping up needles, knowing the real thing brought life into the living room. In the 60s and 70s, real trees were the standard, with artificial ones still in their early stages and far less convincing. As artificial trees became more lifelike, convenient, and reusable, many families gradually shifted away from the tradition of real pine. Do you remember leaning in to breathe the scent of the fresh tree? Number 9. Woolen Christmas jumpers knitted by family. Do you remember slipping into a thick, slightly itchy jumper lovingly knitted by a grandmother or aunt, each stitch carrying a piece of their time and care? These jumpers weren't humorous or loud. They were homemade, practical, and deeply comforting. The patterns were simple, often blending winter shapes and gentle colors that made you feel wrapped in warmth. Knitting was a common pastime in the 60s and 70s, and homemade gifts reflected affection and thoughtfulness during the season. As mass-produced novelty jumpers took over, the handmade versions slowly faded from many homes. Do you remember watching someone knit your jumper by the fire? Number 10. The special Christmas tin of biscuits. Do you recall the excitement of seeing the shiny biscuit tin appear only in December, its lid decorated with snowy scenes or festive illustrations? Inside were biscuits you didn't get any other time of year: shortbread, wafer rolls, chocolate-topped treats, all stacked neatly in crinkled paper trays. The tin became both a treasure chest and a sign that Christmas had officially begun. Throughout the 60s and 70s, these tins were a staple of British homes, often kept afterwards for storing sewing supplies or family mementos. As everyday biscuit options expanded and luxury boxes became available year-round, the magic of the once special tin slowly diminished. Do you remember opening the lid slowly to keep the surprise alive? Number 11. The family photo around the tree. Do you remember standing stiffly in front of the tree while someone adjusted the flash on an old camera, hoping no one blinked at the wrong moment. These photos captured more than faces. They held the warmth of living rooms, the charm of mismatched decorations, and the feeling of a family gathered close. Waiting for the film to develop added to the anticipation, turning each printed picture into a small piece of Christmas history. In the 60s and 70s, with film cameras common and photography more deliberate, these group photos became cherished annual rituals. As smartphones made photography constant and effortless, the special once-a-year family portrait faded. Do you remember finding those old photos years later? Number 12. The quiet walk after Christmas dinner. Do you remember pulling on coats and scarves for a gentle walk through cold, crisp air after Christmas dinner, hearing the soft crunch of frost beneath your shoes? Streets were peaceful, windows glowed warmly, and time seemed to slow as families wandered together, letting the calm settle their hearts. These walks brought a sense of reflection and closeness, offering space to breathe after the bustle of the day. The tradition was strong in the 60s and 70s, when quieter roads and simpler schedules made slow strolls a natural part of the season. As modern holidays grew busier and screens claimed more of our evenings, the peaceful post-dinner walk began to fade. Do you remember the silence of those winter streets? As we look back on these traditions, we're reminded of a time when Christmas moved at a gentler pace, shaped by small rituals rather than grand gestures. The memories may blur with age, but their warmth remains, echoing the way our homes once felt, full of comfort, voices, and a kind of togetherness that didn't need much to feel complete. These vanished traditions may no longer fill our modern homes, yet they live quietly inside us, ready to surface whenever a familiar scent, song, or decoration crosses our path. What do you remember most vividly from your childhood Christmases? Which of these traditions still live in your heart? Share your memories in the comments. I'd love to hear them, and if you enjoyed this journey back in time, please like the video and subscribe to Britain Rewind for more moments from Britain's past. And as you close your eyes tonight, may one small memory from those decades warm your heart once more, just as it once did long ago.